A clear spring morning on May 1st, 2025, enveloped Hawthorne, California, in a soft glow as the President of the United States, Donald Trump, arrived at SpaceX headquarters. The sun, having just risen above the horizon, bathed the industrial landscape in golden rays, highlighting the vastness of the complex where dreams of interplanetary travel were taking shape. The air was tinged with the scent of metal and machine oil, blended with the subtle fragrance of blooming orange trees wafting from nearby hills. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, creating a quiet backdrop to the hum of machinery within the facility. Towering hangars and pristine white buildings of SpaceX loomed over the grounds, standing like sentinels guarding humanity's future. At the main entrance stood Elon Musk, his tall frame prominent against the backdrop of glass doors reflecting the morning light. On this day, he had opted for a slightly more formal look. A black t-shirt and jeans were complemented by a dark blazer, and his face bore an expression of quiet anticipation. His gaze was fixed on the driveway, where their distinguished guest was due to arrive at any moment. Beside him was his son, XAA-12, or simply X, a 5-year-old boy with bright eyes and boundless curiosity. In his hands, X clutched a toy rocket, his little talisman that he hadn't let go of since morning. His light hair was slightly tousled by the breeze, and his face glowed with excitement for the day ahead. Soon, a convoy of black SUVs appeared on the horizon, their glossy exteriors reflecting the sunlight. Secret Service agents emerged first, swiftly scanning the area before opening the door of the lead vehicle. Out stepped Donald Trump, his presence unmistakable. A dark suit, a bright red tie, and perfectly styled hair accentuated his status as the sitting president. Now in the middle of his second term after winning the 2024 election, he exuded the confidence and charisma that had made him one of the most prominent figures in American politics. He straightened up, surveying the complex, his eyes alight with curiosity mixed with admiration. Musk stepped forward to greet the president. Trump, with a broad smile, expressed his awe at the facility, calling it a symbol of American power and innovation. Musk thanked him, noting that it was a great honor to host the nation's leader. Trump's gaze fell on X, who watched him with unabashed curiosity. He bent down slightly toward the boy, wondering if he dreamed of becoming an astronaut. X, pausing for a moment to think, replied that he wanted to build rockets like his father. Trump laughed, remarking that this was even better and that the country needed minds like his. After the exchange of pleasantries, the group headed inside. The main assembly hall was breathtaking in its scale, resembling a hangar built for giants. The ceiling soared dozens of meters high, supported by massive steel columns. At the center stood Falcon 9 rockets in various stages of assembly, their metallic bodies gleaming under bright lights, casting a play of light and shadow. Each rocket was like a work of art, sleek, streamlined forms, perfectly polished surfaces, and intricate components that connected their parts. Engineers in white lab coats moved between workstations, their actions precise and confident. Some operated massive welding machines that emitted bright sparks, creating a rhythm akin to the pulse of the factory. Others inspected fuel tanks, using digital sensors to ensure there were no leaks. The air was thick with the smell of welding and rocket fuel, mingling with the faint scent of anti-corrosion coating, creating a sense that something monumental was being crafted here. Musk led Trump to one of the rockets, explaining its features. The Falcon 9, equipped with 9 Merlin engines, each generating 190,000 pounds of thrust, was designed for reusability, with its first stage returning to Earth after launch. Musk shared that these rockets had become the backbone of missions to deliver cargo to the International Space Station and deploy Starlink satellites, which by 2025 provided internet access to over 3 billion people worldwide. He mentioned how, in March 2025, one such rocket had successfully delivered a new scientific module to the ISS, marking a significant milestone for international space cooperation. Trump ran his hand along the rocket's smooth surface, marveling at the concept of reusability, likening it to recycling, but for space. He reflected on his recent initiative, announced in January 2025, to support private space companies and how such technologies could bolster the American economy. His thoughts drifted to a press conference at the White House where he had unveiled new funding for space programs, a move that had sparked both praise and criticism. X, trailing slightly behind, stopped in front of a massive fuel tank. His eyes widened in awe, and Musk explained that this tank held liquid oxygen and kerosene, the fuels that powered the engines. The tank was enormous, its silver surface reflecting the overhead lights, creating an almost mirror-like effect. X imagined this tank propelling a rocket into space, his mind painting vivid pictures, stars, a black sky, and planets he might one day see. Musk noticed his son's excitement and recalled his own childhood dreams of space, sparked by books about stars and rockets. That memory brought a smile to his face, and he felt a surge of pride that his son shared this passion. The group continued the tour, moving to the engine testing area. The atmosphere here was one of restrained intensity. On the test stand stood a Raptor engine, its intricate design resembling a piece of art. A complex network of pipes and valves, coated with thermal protection, connected its components, and the nozzle, made of a high-strength alloy, looked like a gateway to the future. Musk explained that this was a next-generation engine for Starship, capable of producing over 200 tons of thrust, making it crucial for Mars missions. He described how the Raptor used methane and liquid oxygen, enabling the potential production of fuel directly on Mars using local resources, which would make planetary colonization more feasible. Musk noted that in April 2025, the Raptor had successfully completed a series of tests, achieving record performance and bringing SpaceX closer to a planned orbital Starship flight by the end of the year. Trump, deeply impressed, envisioned how such engines could reshape the future. He thought of his recent executive order, signed in February 2025, which allocated additional funds for technologies to support Mars colonization. That order had sparked debates in Congress, with some lawmakers calling it a fantasy, while others supported it, seeing it as a step toward U.S. leadership in space. X, hearing about the upcoming engine test, became visibly excited. He gripped his toy rocket tighter, anticipating a spectacle he knew would be loud and awe-inspiring. The next stop was the Mission Control Room, a high-tech hub where an air of focus prevailed. Rows of computers and massive screens filled the space, creating the sense that this was the brain of SpaceX. Technicians sat at their stations, their fingers darting across keyboards as their eyes tracked data streams. One screen displayed telemetry from a recent Falcon 9 launch, showing speed, altitude, and fuel tank pressure. Another screen broadcasted a live feed from the International Space Station, where an astronaut floated in zero gravity, conducting a plant growth experiment. Musk explained that this room managed launches and monitored spacecraft, calling it the heart of the company's operations. Trump surveyed the room, likening it to the Situation Room in the White House, but with more screens. He recalled tense days from his current presidency, such as when decisions on trade sanctions against China were made in March 2025, triggering protests in major cities. One of the screens flashed a news ticker mentioning those protests. Trump's expression darkened momentarily as he read a headline about demonstrations in New York, where thousands had rallied against his economic policies. He reflected on how his 2025 decisions, aimed at economic recovery post-global crises, had further divided society. Those memories weighed heavily on him, and he quickly averted his gaze, trying to focus on the present. X approached the screen, showing the space station feed. He was enthralled, watching the astronaut float as if dancing with weightlessness. Musk explained that there's no gravity in space, allowing people to float. X imagined himself in the astronaut's place, drifting among the stars, his mind conjuring images of distant galaxies. Trump joined them, expressing admiration and emphasizing the importance of continued space exploration. He thought of his speech at the G7 summit in April 2025, where he had called for international cooperation in space, and how it might strengthen his global standing. After touring the control room, the group headed to a cozy conference room for a break. The room was designed in a modern style, comfortable chairs, a large table, and a panoramic window overlooking the assembly hall. Through the glass, the rockets in the hangar were visible, their silhouettes almost lifelike in the soft glow of the lights. Staff brought coffee, tea, and light snacks, including fresh croissants, fruit, and bottled water. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the room, mingling with the faint metallic scent that seeped through the ventilation system. Trump settled into a chair, sipping his coffee, and inquired about Musk's future plans. Musk, visibly animated, spoke about the Starship project, which aimed to send humans to Mars by 2030. He described the dream of building a self-sustaining colony on Mars, a city with homes, schools, and hospitals. Musk explained that Starship could carry up to 100 people at a time, and its stainless steel construction made it resilient to extreme conditions. He noted that earlier in 2025, Starship had completed its first suborbital flight, a major step toward future missions. Trump, raising an eyebrow, remarked that it sounded like science fiction. Musk confidently replied that it was reality, built on their success with reusable rockets. X, who had been quietly nibbling on a croissant, suddenly posed a question that caught everyone's attention. He wanted to know if there would be schools on Mars. Musk laughed, assuring him that in time, everything would be there. Trump smiled at the boy, commending his forward thinking. He thought of his youngest son, Barron, who also asked questions about the future, and reflected on how quickly children grow. Those thoughts brought a warmth to his heart, but also reminded him of the time he had missed due to his political career. The conversation flowed easily, touching on topics from space tourism to asteroid mining. Musk spoke about plans to extract water on the moon, which could be converted into rocket fuel, making interplanetary travel more affordable. He mentioned that SpaceX was already collaborating with companies developing technologies to mine rare earth metals from asteroids, and in 2025, they had launched an experimental satellite to test these technologies. Trump, intrigued, considered the economic implications and recalled his initiatives to support American industry. He imagined how the space sector could create millions of jobs, wondering if he should accelerate funding for such projects in the remaining years of his presidency. X closely observed Trump. He knew him from television: loud, confident, always ready to argue. But here, in person, he seemed different, pensive, almost vulnerable. The boy couldn't quite understand why, but it piqued his curiosity. He noticed how Trump occasionally drifted off, staring out the window as if his thoughts were far away. X recalled his father saying that even great people can be afraid, and this made him wonder. At one point, as the conversation lulled, X turned to Trump with a question no one expected. He asked what Trump feared the most. The question hung in the air, simple yet profound, causing everyone to freeze. Musk looked at his son with surprise, while Secret Service agents stiffened, as if worried this moment might leave the room. Trump was taken aback. He was accustomed to tough questions from journalists, but this one, posed by a child, was different, sincere, and direct. For a moment, he considered brushing it off with a jest, but something in X's eyes made him pause. He chose to be honest. His thoughts drifted to his current presidency, to the decisions he had made in 2025, and to their consequences. He recalled the protests that erupted in March 2025 after imposing new trade sanctions, and the criticism from opponents who accused him of deepening economic inequality. Those memories were heavy, and he felt his heart tighten with pain. After a long pause, Trump admitted that his greatest fear was that his current actions as president might further divide the nation. He feared that his policies, aimed at economic recovery, would leave behind a society fractured for decades to come. His voice was softer than usual, his gaze fixed somewhere distant. He recalled how, in early 2025, his decision to raise import tariffs had sparked widespread criticism, and how his opponents in Congress had used it to further polarize public opinion. He thought of the families affected by economic shifts and the cities where protests had turned violent. Those memories were painful, and he felt his confidence waver for a moment. His words brought silence to the room. No one had expected such candor from a man known for his unyielding confidence. Musk, seated nearby, nodded, acknowledging the bravery of the admission. One of the Secret Service agents shifted uncomfortably, as if concerned those words might leak beyond the room. SpaceX engineers exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Some recalled news reports of the 2025 protests and wondered if the president truly cared about the nation's future. X, sensing the weight of the moment, reached out and touched Trump's hand. He shared a piece of childlike wisdom, reminding him that it's okay to be afraid, and even heroes feel fear but still do what they must. His words, simple and heartfelt, touched Trump. He looked at the boy and smiled, expressing gratitude for his understanding. The moment was brief but meaningful, leaving a lasting impact on everyone present. The tension in the room eased, and the conversation gradually returned to its normal flow. But the atmosphere had shifted. There was now a note of mutual understanding and respect. Musk, impressed by Trump's honesty, thought this visit might mark the beginning of a new collaboration. He imagined how Trump could leverage his presidential authority to draw public attention to Mars missions. The tour concluded with a demonstration of the Raptor engine test. The group gathered at a safe distance from the test stand, donning protective earphones. Musk explained that they would conduct a brief ignition to test performance, warning that it would be loud. The test stand was surrounded by massive concrete walls, scarred from previous tests. The air was filled with the scent of metal and fuel, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated slightly from the generators. A voice over the loudspeaker began the countdown. At 0, the engine roared to life. A blinding column of flame erupted from the nozzle, its brightness almost unbearable even through protective goggles. The ground shook, and the air filled with a deafening roar that seemed to pierce through their bodies. The flame was white-blue, with hints of orange at its base, and its heat could be felt even from a distance. X watched, holding his breath, his face alight with wonder. He imagined the engine lifting a starship to the stars, and his heart raced with excitement. Trump was equally impressed, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He reflected on his admission, on his current presidency, and on the decisions he had made in 2025 that had impacted the nation. X's question had forced him to see himself in a new light. The engine's fire reminded him of the power he wielded as president and the responsibility that came with it. He thought of his expanded Space Force directive in 2025 and how he might channel more resources to support companies like SpaceX. He envisioned his name being linked to the first Mars missions, a thought that gave him resolve. Before departing, Trump thanked Musk once more for the day, noting how enlightening it had been. Musk replied that the president was always welcome. Then Trump knelt down to X's level and thanked him for the question that had made him reflect. X grinned widely and suggested he come back again. Trump laughed, promising he might return. As the motorcade drove away, Trump gazed out the window, lost in thought. Something within him had shifted. Perhaps it was time to reassess some of his current policies to heal the divide he had spoken of. He imagined how his presidency might leave a legacy tied to uniting the nation through grand goals like space exploration. That thought gave him determination, and he felt his second term could be a time of transformation. Back at SpaceX, life went on. Engineers returned to their projects, technicians monitored missions, and dreamers like Elon Musk and his son X looked to the sky, unafraid of the unknown. They knew that every launch, every test, every step forward brought humanity closer to the stars. And in that pursuit, as in life, overcoming fears was just part of the journey.